Welcome to With the Contest Queen, where the winning begins, with myself, Carolyn Wellman. This is a pre-recorded episode on Monday, September 16th, 2024, and I have Carolyn Fenzl with me. She is not only a fellow sweeper, she is a fellow author and has a very special series that we are going to talk about today. Now, before we talk to Carolyn, I wouldn't be the contest queen without a giveaway. So what we're going to give away, well, I guess I am spilling the beans a little bit about the interview, is your choice of one of Carolyn's books. So you'll have to listen to find out what they are, and they're very good. I was gripped. And you can enter via the link in the description. So head over to the description of this show, find the link, and enter. And if you're watching this long after the contest is closed, head over to my website because there's always something being given away. Welcome, Carolyn. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, I did spill the beans a little bit, but I'm going to read. I want to share your bio with everybody because this fascinates me because I'm also a writer. Now, Carolyn Fenzl is a rom-cozy, I always thought it was rom-com, but it's rom-cozy author of Ballad of Buddy, a 2023 Indies Today Book Award finalist, which is amazing, a 2024 Bookshelf Award honorable mention, and she also wrote the Lucy Vaughn mystery series, which is my favorite thing, including The Debt Collectors and Christmas at Cave Creek. Now, the reason I love them is because my favorite style of book is a mystery novel. And then well, I won't tell you. I'll let her tell you. The latter received 5-star reviews from Indies Today, won a literary Titan Silver Book Award, and an honorable mention in the women's mystery category in the fall 2022 Book Fest Awards competition, and a gold medal from the Dan Poinier Global Ebook Awards. Oh my God, I am so proud of you because I write nonfiction. Fiction is a whole nother kettle of fish. It's a whole nother skill set. And you have to know what you're doing when you write fiction. And clearly she does. She's won awards for it. Like her protagonist, Lucy Vaughn. Okay, now here's where we're spilling the beans. Carolyn loves entering sweepstakes and wrote No Purchase Necessary, How I'm Beating the Odds, her memoir about the hobby. She's currently a member of the Idaho Writers Guild and the National Federation of the Blind Writers Division. Before she started writing books, Carolyn earned a BA in history from the University of Virginia and a JD from the Vermont Law School. Carolyn lives in Idaho with her husband, her cats, and her trusty guide dog. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. This is going to be so fun.
I loved her series. And when she first published the books, I bought it. It was gripped, couldn't stop reading. And then I gave some away. And so, of course, that's why we have to give more away today. But start at the beginning. Okay, so you've got two things happening at the same time. One is you're a sweeper, because it is the best hobby in the whole world.
Yes.
And the other is you're an author, a fiction author, no less. So tell us a little bit about each path, because obviously at some point they converged.
Yeah. So they started sort of separately, but it still had to do with contesting. So I was writing ever since I was a little girl, just a passion of mine. And I was just writing stories. I was writing poems. When I was 16, I actually entered a citywide poetry contest for people in my age group. And I won an honorable mention. And so that was sort of my very first win altogether, but it happened to be a writing win. I didn't win a prize that I could use, but it was still fun. And so before I was actually a regular sweeper, when I was about 25, I actually had won a trip to DC off of a radio contest. And this was like
Wow.
my first one entering, not a writing one, but just a regular sweepstakes. But I still didn't pick up the hobby for probably another 12 years. So
Okay, can I just stop you? So what
yeah.
made you enter that radio contest?
I even remember what the impetus was. I remember my sister was encouraging me to call in. And I don't know, I just felt like, oh, maybe I could win this. And then I did. It was like, you know how you get like a gut feeling.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so
Yeah.
then there was a huge gap.
Yeah. And so probably 12 years later, my husband and I were moving across the country from Virginia on the East Coast to California. And we had to move in temporarily while we were looking for a house with his mother. And living with your mother-in-law obviously has challenges. And we were kind of in each other's hair. And I was looking for a hobby to do that would keep me kind of like distant, where I could just sit at my desk and do something. And it was my husband actually that had read an article. It may have even been about you. I don't know, remember what it was he was telling me about at the time, but he had read an article about a woman who was sweepstaking as a hobby and had won tons of prizes. And he suggested that maybe I try that. And so I did another radio contest after his suggestion for that, and I ended up winning it. It was the first time I'm trying as like my regular hobby sweeping, self. It was tickets to Disneyland. And shortly thereafter, I actually won a trip. And so that hooked me. And
Yeah, I call it contest crack.
yeah, it is. It really is. And so about a year later, I was participating in National Novel Writing Month. Which if people don't know what that is, it's a challenge in the month of November to write 50,000 words during that time, which is a full-length novel. And it's just for kudos. It doesn't have any prize attached to it, but I had the idea at that time to kind of converge the sweepstaking hobby with the writing. And that's where the shell of the first Lucy Vaughn book kind of came together during that contest, even though I didn't publish it for a few years later because I was editing it. Yeah.
So you just got it out of your system and then worked it.
Yeah. And then had to edit it, and I kind of put it away for a while, because you kind of want to just mull it over in your brain in the back of your head and then come back to it and make it what it is. So yeah, that's kind of how they came together.
Yeah. So just to make it clear for people, so the Lucy Vaughn series is a rom cozy mystery series.
Yep. And
I was thinking it was more like cozy mystery, but there's so many different genres.
Yeah, it just has that little sort of romantic aspect to it in that there's a love interest. So
there is. She has a little bit of everything. It's such a good anyway. So what I loved was that the protagonist, so I love mysteries, and what I found good, and it is very difficult to do, or I believe it's difficult to do. You might find it easy, is to keep the reader hooked. Like I had no idea how the book was going to end. And I love that because sometimes you read a book and, the old joke is, oh, the butler did it. Like you can figure it out by page, 10. You're like, oh yeah, the butler did it. And sure enough, by the time you get to the end of the book, you're right. When you read the Lucy Vaughn series, you have no idea what's going to happen. You have to keep reading. And I love that. And I think that is just no wonder you won awards, because you can't, like, you don't know what's going to happen. And that I think is a really key writing skill. But so I just wanted to give you a little plug and get people to read your books, because I just love them so much. I'm embarrassed to say that my plate is so full. I have not gone back and reread them, which is something I usually do with books that I love. So that was your inspiration for Lucy Vaughn.
Yes.
Okay. So then what's next? Because you also just came out with a book. So we have a sweepstakes book, which we'll talk about, but you just came out with the Ballad of Buddy, which is kind of an offshoot.
It is. It's a spin-off. So the first two novels have to do with Lucy Vaughn and her solving her mysteries. But in those books, she has this sort of I won't call him evil, but just not the straight and narrow ex-boyfriend who has been bothering her. And so I decided he would make a very interesting character to explore further. So I did sort of this offshoot novel that tells his story.
Yeah, so that's the new one. And then, of course, let's go back to the best hobby in the whole world. No purchase necessary. So give us a little rundown. You know what? I don't think I ever bought that one. And I'm like, how did I not buy that one? I will have to go buy it.
So it is a memoir. It's a very short memoir, actually. But it's just sort of about how the hobby of sweeping helped me through some difficult health challenges. Anxiety, my husband and I both had cancer. So we had a lot going on in our lives, and it's just how it sort of gave me purpose and kept me going through some difficult times. And so I just kind of describe my journey with that in that memoir.
Well, that's the nice thing about the sweepstakes hobby is that it's so positive, and not only is winning prizes a positive and fun thing, and you get to dream while you're entering. There's a whole community of wonderful people that I didn't expect to find when I started. Like, you live in Idaho. Where in our everyday lives would our paths have crossed? Never.
That's true.
And yet we get to be sweeping friends.
Yeah,
and one amazing. Of these days she's going to come to the convention.
I have been to two conventions, the online one and the one that took place on the cruise ship. I went to that.
The two that I haven't, the one where I was in person and the one that I didn't go to.
But yes, one of these days I am going to get back, and maybe even one day it will be here in Idaho.
Yeah, the next two, for anybody watching that wants to attend, it's going to be in Little Rock, Arkansas, and then it's going back to Phoenix, Arizona. So we don't know where 2027 is, but we know up to 2026. So that's really interesting to have the offshoot. Now, I assume a third Lucy Vaughn novel is percolating somewhere. Has any words been written in the third book?
Yes, I would say it is more than half written, although it's a process. I'm doing a lot of research for this one. So I wouldn't expect it this year for sure.
Oh, no, it's too short.
Yeah. So with my third book, she sort of just to give a little preview taste, she ends up winning a trip to northern Idaho, which I think she wins in one of the other books. But anyway, she takes that trip, and someone there is setting forest fires. And she actually volunteers her time on vacation there to help some of the animals that have been impacted by the wildfires, but then gets wrapped up in the mystery of who is setting these fires. But one of the cool things that I think I'm going to resolve in this book is why Lucy is as lucky as she is. Why was she sort of chosen to be lucky? And also, why is she always attracted to these mysteries? So we're going to explore that a little bit.
This is going to be interesting. And yeah, so if it comes out in 25 or 26, we're good. Yeah, because the process is longer, especially when you're doing research. Now, we know what Lucy's best win is so far. It's been a trip to Idaho. What was your best win?
Okay, so my best win in that, well, I guess if we're talking about my best win and what I liked the best, it would have been a trip I won to London. It was very fun. They included a traditional tea. I had some outings into the countryside. We got to see Stonehenge and one of the buildings where Harry Potter was filmed. It was a really cool trip, and one of those experiences that I wouldn't have had if it had not been for sweeping. So
yeah, that's one of the things I like to tell people about the hobby, and you just iterated it, is that you could win things that just wouldn't be in your budget or on your radar. Like, I went to New Mexico once on a trip and I would not pick New Mexico out as a travel destination. And it was like one of the best places I've ever been. And I'm like, why do not more people come to New Mexico? It's always a surprise when you win. Now, you said that was your favorite, which means, because the word best is subjective.
Yes.
What else do you consider best?
So I guess the one with the most value would have been, I won a camper in 2022. I'm looking at my notes. It was 2022. And it was one of those bean trailers that had sort of like a kitchen on the back, a little sleeping area inside. And that was from the Natural Grocers and Solar Race sweepstakes. And
Wow.
yeah, so that was the highest value one that I have won.
Yeah, it's fun, the things that you can win. I do remember you posting the picture with it.
Yes.
And I think with what was going on in your life, you sold it. Which
I did. I sold it probably a little less than a year after winning it, just because there was just not enough. I did have a lot going on in my life at the time. Wasn't getting as much use out of it as I wanted to, and so I did. But even selling prizes that you can use towards other endeavors is fun in and of itself.
Yeah, it's you still won it. You still got to enjoy it. And
I did,
yeah, like you said, sometimes life, takes a left turn and you just say, I'm not using this, and let somebody else enjoy it.
Exactly.
Now, so tell us about your hobby. Do you use the sweepstakes aggregate? Do you prefer Instagram giveaways? Are you really still good on the radio? Because you've been very lucky on the radio.
Oh my gosh, look, this past week, I actually hadn't done radio sweepstakes for ages. And this past week, they were giving away $500 to local only people. So you had to text in like a word 5 times a day to be in the draw. And I did that all last week. But I didn't get picked. I'm not doing so much on social media. I do the occasional social media sweep, but I do use the aggregates to usually find my single and daily entries. I use things like I Win, I use Contest Girl, I use Sweepstakes Advantage, all the,
all the biggies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for those, so as I Win Contest is a subscription, just to let people know. I Win Contest is a subscription-based newsletter, but you could always just buy 3 months to try it. Sweepstakes Advantage is free to use. They also have a paid version called Sweepstakes Plus, which has more features. And Contest Girl is actually one of the 3 Canadian open to Canada and the US. And she's actually out of Ottawa. She's Canadian too. So those are good aggregates to use for different things. They all have different benefits, which is why people use more than one. Do you use now, how do you save your sweepstakes? I started asking people this because I like to use RoboForm to enter and organize. What do you use?
Okay, so actually, my husband in his last life was a computer programmer, and he actually built me a little site of my own that helps me save my sweepstakes. So it's like,
wow.
I can save them. I can know when I last entered, so I know like if the clock, if it's a 24-hour sweepstake or if it's just daily or single, I can categorize them all in the program like that. It's very similar to what you would find on an aggregate site for organizing your sweepstakes. It's just that it's only available to me.
Oh, well, there you go. That is probably the coolest way I've ever heard that anybody saves their sweepstakes. I've heard, I'd use a spreadsheet, or I use my bookmarks, or
before I had the website. Yeah, before I had the site, I was using bookmarks though. So,
well, you're very lucky. Actually, here's a question: does he have a favorite that you've won? Like, when you win, because George thinks sweepstakes are a scam because he doesn't ever win them, and then I enter and I win, and we go on all these things, and I'm like, it's not a scam. We just had tickets to whatever. So what does your husband think of the hobby? Because you are obviously entering, well, he wrote you a program, so he obviously doesn't think it's fake. But what does he think of your hobby? And do you enter him? That's another good question.
So yeah, he's very supportive of the hobby. And like I said, he's the one that initially suggested that I even get into this when he read an article on it. And so he's been really supportive. And so, yeah, I think, he really likes everything I win, because he likes to see me be getting excited. He likes to see me happy. His favorite probably was I had won this pinball machine that had special artwork on it.
Oh,
And
wow.
we have this local sort of it's like this antique pinball palace or whatever, but the guy knew the artist and really wanted, like, when he heard I won it, like, he knew somebody in the company that was giving it away and had heard I won it. So he contacted me and asked if he could buy it for the pinball thing, for the pinball sort of museum that they had. So I actually ended up selling it. My husband was so happy because he ended up, we had like our water heater breakdown. And so he ended up being able to purchase a new one with some of that money. And that made him very happy. But yeah, he's just, he doesn't actually travel with me, but he is very supportive.
Yeah, that's an interesting, well, a good thing about the hobby is sometimes you can get funds to use for other things that you might need. Like if you won like a Visa gift card or a grocery gift card, and then that money can be spent on other things. And in this case, a pinball machine turned into a water heater.
Yes, much needed.
Much
I mean,
needed.
the pinball machine was cool, believe me. And I had even made space for it, but the guy that wanted it, I felt really bad because he really wanted the artwork, and I just felt like he deserved to have something he would really appreciate. So I didn't feel that bad about.
Well, it all worked out, and it has a home that is.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Now, you didn't say if you enter, because some sweepers will enter their spouses. Some spouses will enter for themselves, and
the only
people don't enter their spouses at all. So which road do you take?
The only ones I enter him in are the vehicle ones, because 9 times out of 10, the vehicle rule ones will say that if you do not have a driver's license, you cannot enter. And my husband has a driver's license and I do not. And so,
yes.
So those are the only ones I actually enter him into. And I don't think he would be sad about having a new car. So
that makes sense. Yeah, that's actually a good tip if anybody's paying attention. My number one tip is to always read the rules. And Carolyn obviously does, because she doesn't drive. Because if you remembered in her bio, she's got a guide dog. She's part of the Blind Writers Association. So obviously she's not going to drive. And part of those rules, she's making sure that she's not entering. Because what a disappointment to be notified of winning a vehicle and you didn't read the rules, and then you're disqualified, and it's wasting the sponsor's time. You're disappointed. So this is why it's always important to read those rules. So now we're going to send you some fairy dust that your husband wins a car.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So that's really important to keep in mind when you're doing that. Now, you have a variety of books. You have a couple of mystery books. You have what category does the Ballad of Buddy fall into?
It is also a mystery. Yes.
Oh, it's a mystery too. Okay. I did not realize that. I downloaded it. I haven't read it yet. I'm finishing the last book I'm reading.
Well, if you remember in the past, one of the past books, he did end up disappearing for a while, and nobody knew what happened to him. So we kind of explored that mystery a little bit in the Ballad of Buddy.
And so you have, like I said, you have 3 mysteries and a memoir. Yes. So who's besides me is going to enjoy your books? Like who's have you heard from, and who's been buying your books? And
honestly, the sweeper community has been extremely just really supportive. I have a lot of sweepers who buy my books. Anybody that's interested in really the concept of luck and like the excitement of winning, they like it. If you're a cozy mystery fan, you'll like it. If you like sort of the meet cute, budding romance kind of vibe. You know, we got that in the books. Also, anybody that's actually interested in sort of the unknown, like because that there's sort of like a paranormal, cryptozoological bent on these plots. And so if you're interested in sort of exploring that, you might be interested in them too.
Well, you know me, I have the whole words for winning thing with all the woo-woo stuff. So that's why, maybe that's the other reason I really loved it. Like, she took everything that I love. Carolyn took all my favorite bits and rolled them into one book. So feel free to keep writing.
I will, I promise.
Now, so we talked about your hobby, and so now do you find, I wanted to ask you, because you're in Idaho, and one of the things that some people find is that depending on where they live, the opportunities for winning change. Mm-hmm. So how do you adjust your hobby for living in Idaho? Like, are you like close to Boise?
I'm actually in Boise.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, there's quite a few contests that are very specific to the Pacific Northwest, which Idaho is considered part of. And so a lot of these regional sweepstakes have been really great. I used to enter more local contests. They're getting a lot harder to find, honestly, other than the radio ones. But yeah, a lot of the regional ones, companies that run regional ones are open to Idaho. So
why do you, just from a sweeper's perspective, why do you think it's getting harder to find locals? Because do you think it's because Boise's what, a medium market? Like, I live near Toronto, so it's like a mass market. It's like living next to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a huge city just the same. But Boise's a bit smaller.
It is, yeah.
So do you think it's because it's not like LA or New York or Chicago?
I mean, yeah, that probably has something to do with it. There's just it's a big city that feels small, and I feel like there's just you know, I don't know, maybe not as many chains that run things, or maybe even just local mom and pop things. I just don't see them as much, and I don't know if it has to do with financials or if it has to do with, you know, just the market. I'm not sure.
I'm wondering if they've moved to Instagram. When you said that, a lot of companies have moved their small giveaways to Instagram because it's easy for a small business, because I host them too, to host a small giveaway on Instagram.
That's
because
true.
The rules are simple and you can tell people to come pick up the prize. So obviously people only in that region are going to enter.
Yeah.
And
that's probably true.
So we got to get you more on Instagram.
I know. I would love to utilize the social media for entering a lot more than I do. It's a lot of it has to do with time constraint. So I just focus on, you know, what I have time to do. When I have days that I have more time, I do pop in a few entries, but for the most part, I don't know, writing takes up a lot of time.
You're telling that to me. And I also do tell people to enter social media giveaways last, because as you've pointed out, your odds of winning a regular, I'm using that term loosely, sweepstakes, is a lot higher. So we're going to put it out that you're going to win something big soon.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And if you want to win one of 3 Kindle editions of Carolyn's books, so your choice. So there's 4 to choose from, and you can pick whichever one you want and enter in the link on the description. So again, Carolyn, thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me. This was really great.
And thank you for tuning into With the Contest Queen, where the winning begins.